Okay, what makes a good design-build project? It's obviously one where there's a need to accelerate the schedule, accelerate the delivery. And for this project, now 10 years old, that became apparent very quickly. But how many of you remember where you were back in August 1st, 2007? The day this happened, Jeff and I were at the subcommittee on construction meeting. I don't remember what state it was in. I think we were in Mississippi, Jeff. There's the guy from Minnesota, the poor state construction engineer, watching the news and seeing this on the news and thinking my life is going to be different for the next 2 to 3 years, as well as the 5 firms that proposed on this design-build project. But MnDOT had already done probably 5 to 10 design-build projects at that point. They had a process in place. They had been working with their state industry. They had a state law that fully authorized design-build. So they had the industry cooperation. They just didn't have these circumstances. But to their credit, from August 1st through award of contract, October 8th, that's 69 days. They shortlisted 5 firms, 1 dropped out. They had confidential negotiations and discussions with 4 of those firms, received ATCs, and were still able to award a design-build contract in 69 days with their accelerated schedule. But that became one of the poster childs for why we should do design-build, why we should be looking at scheduling issues. Can we save significant time? Do we have limited resources? From MnDOT's standpoint, they had their bridge staff, their pavement staff, their whole headquarters team was soaked into that process of awarding a contract on I-35W. And it became very intensive for that basically 6 to 8 week period. So they had the ultimate goal and incentive to get the work back open in time, and they had the ultimate in cooperation too from their resource agencies, so they were able to do that. But these are the type of schedule issues that we should be looking at for projects and design build. Project complexity is another aspect that you should be looking at. For I-35W, yeah, it was a fairly complex bridge, a Mississippi River crossing that was going to be done during the winter or over a winter, and that's not easy doing a river crossing of that magnitude through the winter months. But they were able to identify what was important to them and select a design build team that met their quality standards. But they looked at all these issues regarding complexity, scheduling. Construction staging was very important in Minnesota. They had limited access points, but working with the Corps of Engineers and others up there, the city of Minneapolis, they were able to overcome some of these complexity issues. And of course, that's the picture of the completed project. I happened to be very lucky and was able to be there for the first week of their procurement process, but it was interesting to hear MnDOT staff talk about what their goals and objectives were. And how many bridges have we had in the U.S. that have fallen down that have not been hit by a truck or burned by a fire? You can almost count them on your hands, right? Myannis in Connecticut, Silver Bridge, Schoharie Creek up in New York. There have been a couple erosion failures, but very few failures of the bridge structure itself. So MnDOT had this task of rebuilding public trust, and this design-build project was critical in rebuilding that public trust. Okay, other considerations. Another reason for using design-build. Maybe it's just the need for innovation. Maybe we need to do something different. Maybe we need the contractors and the industry's expertise in scheduling and using their knowledge of equipment and how to get the job done. And maybe it's important to have that industry expertise in the design process and give them the responsibility for not only designing it, but coming up with a schedule that implements that design. Such as NCDOT, North Carolina DOT, had a wetland that was historically problematic for them. How many of you remember seeing this picture in Engineering News Record? The guy that designed this gantry system for Flatiron Manson, he actually won the Engineer of the ENR Engineer of the Year award, but quite a project. NCDOT set up their design build project with quality incentives. They wanted to minimize the construction footprint within this wetland. I don't know how long this bridge was, but the procurement was set up, and the quality criteria, the award criteria, were all set up around criteria to minimize the footprint of construction in the wetland. So Flatiron designed this cantilever bridge construction system where the bridge construction took place top down. No formwork, no false work in the wetland area. Everything was done from the top down. They erected the gantry system, drove out the pile driver, extended it out there, put the piles on the end of that, drove piles down without having any formwork or false work down in the wetland area itself. And just like an assembly line, they were able to build this structure using this unique and innovative system. Probably only made possible because of this design-build project and the way NCDOT structured their procurement process. So that's one example of the innovation that can come about if the incentive is there for it to be done. All right, the Fed's got to talk about why we should not use design-build. From Federal Highway's perspective, we should not do it just to obligate funds. And again, we should not do it just to obligate funds. Fact is, it is sometimes done that way, and we have some states that have done it just to obligate funds at the end of the year, but it should not be done that way. If the owner wants to keep a heavy hand or involvement in the design process, then design-build is probably not the right delivery method. So these are reasons not to do design-build.